we did say that this right here was going to happen eventually.
Chicago health officials now say 12 measles cases have been reported in the city. 10 of them have been traced to the city's largest migrant shelter in Pilsen. Nearly 100 migrants are now in quarantine at a Chicago area hotel set up by the state. They've all been exposed to measles and will stay there for 21 days. The hotel, of course, not open to the public.
Despite a recent outbreak of measles at one of the city's largest shelters. Now, according to officials, there are nearly 12,000 migrants living in 23 shelters across the city. And Mayor Brandon Johnson says this eviction could impact about half of them.
But again, they can return to the loading zone. That's one place, or they can decide to move on. You know, they don't necessarily have to remain within the structure that we're providing.
So what Mayor Brandon Johnson means here is that the migrants can return to the city's migrant landing zone. This is where the buses drop the migrants off when they arrive from
communication.
the border.
Everyone has been told they have to be out by the end of this month. It's been very hard with the conditions here, and I don't know what to do next.
Most of the asylum seekers that we spoke to are from Venezuela and Colombia. They say they don't have jobs, no work papers, or any means to try to find a rental agreement.
Instead of starting this video out by talking about the measles outbreak in the city of Chicago and the potential measles outbreak across the country, because believe it or not, more cases have been reported, not just the 7 in a hotel, not just the ones you just saw in the news report, not just the fact that people are concerned about vaccinations, or actually evictions. I want to start this video out by talking about a comedy routine that happened this past weekend that has actually gone viral all over Twitter.
Which, of course, should have been changed a long time ago. So they bringing them in. You wonder where the money coming from. They taking it, the COVID fund that was here, that money. You talking about all the pro housing programs. So when people pay rent, all the rental programs, that money, all the programs that we have in the city of Chicago, they are bankrupting us. They are taking from all of these programs that we have, and they're taking the money and they're funding the migrants. Our taxpayers, we've already paid $32 million out of our taxes to house and take care of the migrants thus far. Now, we already know the only ones who qualify to become citizens in asylum here from the starts of if they were here after August, they don't even qualify. But here we're going to be taking care of them for 5 to 7 years while there's paperwork floating on people's desk. And why? Send them home. Send them back. But Venezuela already said, oh, we're not taking them back.
I
got
a question for you. Who did you vote for?
First of all, wait. I have no problem with saying that I did vote for Biden because I was not voting.
Okay.
I did.
Okay,
But here it is.
Hold on.
Wait, okay,
that was the question.
Okay.
Now you answered it, right?
Okay.
This migrant influx that we're dealing with right now, this is your fault.
Okay, well, let me say, hold on. First of all, let me say.
Oh, really quick, I want you to think about something. Black women vote Democrat at like a 95, 96% clip. And it's black men that are actually waking up to what's going on. And they're actually the ones in the demographic that the former president, Donald Trump, is getting when people point out the fact that blacks are, in fact, going more Republican. But I'll be explaining that a little bit more later on in the video because there's a common misconception. But, of course, this entire situation also comes with its own set of politics and BS, which we will get into over the course of this video. But as you guys can obviously see, measles has in fact broken out. And of course, we did say, or at least I did anyways, and many other commentators on the platform, I shouldn't probably be speaking for all of them, but I should definitely speak for myself, that we said that not only would crime be an issue, not only would security be an issue, not only would taxpayer dollars not being readily available be an issue, but we also said, well, I said, that at some point in time, disease was going to be an issue. Now, this video right here, for the most part, is going to hinge on the city of Chicago. But, of course, there is going to be an element of New York that's going to show up like I'm about to show you guys now with New York City Mayor Eric Adams now suddenly saying, look, the right to shelter is no longer in place. And, of course, if the right to shelter is gone, then eventually sanctuary city status will probably be gone as well. But, of course, I did do a video on a Tyson plant out in the middle of Iowa that decided to replace all of its workers with migrants. And of course, this is kind of the thing that Tyson Foods is going to be doing going forward. So yes, the boycott on Tyson Foods is obviously still in effect, the same exact way that the boycott on Planet Fitness is still in effect. I'll leave both videos in the description box, but hear for yourselves.
Our city has been managing an ongoing humanitarian crisis, providing shelter and care to approximately 183,000 new arrivals, a number that is larger than the population of most cities. But we have been clear since day one that the right to shelter was never intended to apply to large-scale migrant populations arriving without housing or legal work status in such a short period of time.
Eric Adams, a lot like what Brandon Johnson may see here eventually, is that these people will in fact bring disease. Not saying that they're bringing disease per se, but when you look at a bunch of people getting together, people of different races, people of different environments, of course, people who don't know one another, they get together, they stay with one another, they live together. And of course, these people are being evicted, as you guys will see here in a second, or some of these people are. It wouldn't surprise people that eventually some type of disease would, in fact, at some point in time, break out, like you guys are going to see right now.
Just city to be hit with measles.
To see an uptick in cases where we haven't seen cases in the last 5 years is concerning for us.
12 confirmed cases so far, including 10 connected to the city's largest migrant shelter. Today, city health officials announced a new policy aimed at stopping the spread.
Now migrants are required to get the MMR vaccine before going into shelters. Tell me the reason behind that.
We want to safeguard the health of new arrivals. And as long as measles is circulating in our city, they can get sick.
City health officials launched a mass vaccination campaign for migrants.
Over 900 vaccinations were administered, really in response to really doing the strategies that we know work to contain measles outbreaks.
This asylum seeker from Venezuela told CBS News he was vaccinated soon after arriving. Nationwide, measles vaccination rates have fallen since 2019. About 93% of kindergartners were vaccinated last year, falling short of the CDC's 95% goal. The first measles outbreak this year was in Pennsylvania, followed by outbreaks in 16 other states, including 6 cases at an elementary school in South Florida.
There are a lot of people that are not vaccinated right now that need to be vaccinated to stop transmission.
That right there was only one news report, and that news report tried to put a bit of a positive spin on the whole MMR vaccination status, and of course people getting poked. Now, one of the things that we noticed during the whole border crisis when it first started, and this was long before I started talking about this issue much more than I thought it was going to be, because even I did not anticipate it was going to get this bad. I knew it was going to get bad, but not this freaking bad, to the point where millions were going to be here. One of the things that was being granted to those who were coming across the border was free COVID vaccinations. Now, COVID and MMR are not the same vaccinations, at least as far as I'm concerned, at least as far as I know, but still at the same time, they were being given free COVID vaccinations where people here in the United States had to actually pay to get their COVID vaccination. Now, me, I never got it, even though my vaccination, which of course can be offered to me, would be free because obviously I fall under the VA because I'm a veteran and therefore I get VA health care. Still, with that right there being said, I have not gotten poked and probably won't ever get poked unless they absolutely force me to get poked, which I probably still won't get poked, especially given the fact that my recent health diagnosis, which by the way is not fatal, would suggest that maybe we should not poke him with this, given the fact that one of the things that comes with the COVID vaccinations, which of course we're not really supposed to talk about, is a certain health condition that once again I'm not allowed to talk about because of YouTube's terms and services. But still at the same time though, as you guys can obviously tell, use your own imagination, use your own research, I'll link it in the description box, that yeah, someone in my position would obviously not want to take this particular shot. There's a reason why we call it the C shot for a reason, and C doesn't stand for COVID. But still at the same time though, these people were given free vaccinations once they crossed the border. And some people are not wanting to get vaccinations. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. I mean, you have no idea what the hell is going to be going into your body. So therefore, I'm going to reject this and see what the hell happens when somebody else gets done. I know it seems a little bit screwed up or whatnot, but still, given the fact that now we have a measles outbreak, I'm pretty sure some of these people are probably saying this, you know, man, maybe I should have gotten it. But then again, at the same time, wasn't there this little case at one point in time that said that you could get the flu from the flu vaccine? Just very, very crazy stuff when it comes to vaccines. The point is this right here. We told you that eventually at some point in time, disease was going to break out in these places. And of course, they've already broken out before. But the thing that you got to understand is that this particular situation had disaster written all over it from the very start. You got to think about something really quick. You're bringing in people who, quite frankly, are brand new voters. You're bringing them into this area, and you want them to be loyal Democrat voters because they're going to be loyal to the party that granted them citizenship. Now, granted, there is a possibility that that right there may not happen, as I'll explain more so towards the end of the video, but let's just go ahead and use some common sense. The vast majority of these people, the first time around voting, they're going to vote Democrat. They probably won't vote the 2024 election cycle, but they more than likely will. Or some of them will in 2028, 2026. Don't worry, we'll get to voting here soon because voting has also got a part to do with this as well because, as you guys will see, they're already starting them young, like I've been saying in other videos. But the point is this right here. These people are starting to get evicted from these areas. And, of course, they're going to tell you this got nothing to do with the measles vaccine, but then they very, very conveniently slide it in at the very, very end that it is over the fact that these people do, in fact, have the measles or they are, in fact, spreading the measles in these areas.
To pack their bags and move out of local shelters. It is the first round of evictions set to take place this spring. Casey Cronus is live on the near west side tonight. Casey.
Terrence and Scott, the mayor first announced this shelter stay limit last fall, but it was postponed more than once. Now time is up for some migrants, a move critics say will only lead to more problems.
There are consequences to these decisions that I think will end up costing the taxpayer more.
After several delays, 34 migrants are among the first group of shelter residents who on Sunday must find a new place to call home.
There's an opportunity for them to return to the beginning process of seeking temporary shelter.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson does not seem to know his ass from a hole in the ground. He never has. He never will. These people said we're getting tired of the crime, so they decided to bring in a mayor who, as you guys can obviously see, is not white. They rejected the white guy, Paul Vallius, who was just a basic Democrat, and they decided to go with Brandon Johnson, somebody who's way more woke than the former mayor, Lori Lightfoot. By the way, Brandon Johnson only won the election by like 3 or 4 points. Makes you wonder how things could have gone if he had not won. It makes you wonder what Chicago would be doing at this moment in time if Brandon Johnson was not the mayor. I mean, just saying.
And if there are beds that are available, then they certainly will be considered.
Earlier this week, Mayor Brandon Johnson explained there are some exemptions to the policy, including pregnancy. And now families with children will receive 30-day extensions, which may be renewed up to 3 times through June 10th.
We actually need to be expanding capacity rather than downsizing.
40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez penned a letter to the mayor signed by dozens of council members and local groups asking that the policy be reconsidered.
The concern is they're not going to go to the landing zone as being proposed. They're going to end up homeless right outside the shelters because that's the only community they know.
Complicating the eviction.
Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these migrants probably did not expect to hear that they would be evicted from some areas. And of course, this has also got to do with the landing area that these people are being sent back to. But the thing is this right here. A lot of these migrants came over thinking that the country was taking them in with open arms because of, well,
make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should
keep using that clip throughout the rest of the year. Just a bit of a heads up so that way people understand who exactly is responsible for the migrant crisis and who exactly it was that push for the migrant crisis. And even though Texas just got a pretty good ruling from the Supreme Court, which is really kind of a mixed bag, which I may cover in another video, probably the second video of tomorrow. The thing is this right here. People can obviously see that this right here has, in fact, become a big issue. And, of course, when you add in measles, as I'm about to show you guys, it obviously makes the situation a lot worse than what it has been the entire time. Regardless of how some aldermen may feel, obviously a city at some point in time is going to have to decide who to protect and who not to protect. Now, let me put it to you this way here. If you choose to protect the people who are natural-born citizens, people who, quite frankly, have been, how do I say this, living in the city of Chicago, people who've been loyal to the city of Chicago, therefore those people will probably reward you at the ballot box for taking care of them. But if you reward the migrants, however, chances are these people will probably stay home, realizing that, quite frankly, there's nothing that they can do except hope that the state of Illinois turns red sometime soon. But let's watch this next half of the report, and then we'll get to that aspect on the other side.
Since last week, 12 cases have been confirmed in the city, 10 of them at the Pilsen shelter. The mayor's office says new arrivals who show up at the landing zone and cannot prove prior vaccination or refuse the MMR vaccine will no longer be placed into shelter. It's there health officials have begun administering vaccines on the spot. City officials also announced today that if shelter residents are exposed to measles, the Department of Family and Support Services can put a pause on this eviction policy. Right now, we're told this is occurring at 6 shelters, giving city officials time to vaccinate and quarantine those residents.
I am showing you some of the activities that occurred this past summer in Chicago. Of course, these were all black residents that were protesting. I'll even play the clips for you guys, or one set of the clips here in a second. The fact of the matter is that people in the city of Chicago, they have had it. They have had it with this nonsense. They've had it with the migrant crisis. And of course, they want the migrant crisis to end. The people who live in Chicago that are people of color, so it also includes a lot of white liberals too, they are starting to turn their back on the situation. This also includes a lot of Hispanics, especially those who've been in the country for a very long time. And I've already told you guys how I feel about this. I used to be a little bit more lenient on the topic of immigration, not so much anymore. Haven't been for a while. I started to notice back in 2015-16 timeframe that maybe a border wall needed to be built, but I wasn't exactly okay with deporting those who had been here a very long time and were still trying to get a brand new immigration status. But looking at the situation now, maybe that phrase, anchor baby, is absolutely 100% correct now that we've seen exactly what's been going on. And now you've got people going to TikTok claiming how they're, teaching other people how they plan on robbing your house.
Invadir una casa en United States. Ya que me enteré que existe una ley que dice que si una casa no está habitada, podemos expropiarla. Capichi, muchachos, aquí en United States también.
That clip right there will come back up in tomorrow's video when we talk about one-party rule, because obviously this right here is going to be an issue. The point is this right here. You got high crime, you got a national security risk, now you've got diseases, and of course the taxpayer cannot flip the bill for all these. And of course a lot of native Chicagoans have had enough of this, especially those in the minority population. Now guys, I showed you guys some stuff in the B-roll footage of blacks, of course, getting upset with the fact that the migrants were getting all the benefits. Let me go ahead and replay it for you, but let me go ahead and start with this first person saying the DNC needs not come here.
To us, now you want to overly compensate for people who never lived here before, and we need to be taken care of first and foremost before anything else happens here.
Why would any leader put our black communities already riddled with crime at further risk by placing unvetted non-taxpayers steps away from our seniors, our children, and our homes we've worked so hard on our own to secure?
We are at war, people. Our communities are at war. They are violating our communities, and we asking that we across the country, and we asking and we're demanding for office of Black America, or whatever you want to call it, to deal with issues like this.
I did get placed on a wait list, but I was told that the immigrants was taking priority. See, that's a story that a lot of people don't know, and it hurt me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I understand we need to be humanitarian, but these people my participants are third and fourth generation Chicagoans, born, bred, fed, and raised here. My grandmother, Mayrella Carrington, rest in peace, always said, Craig, charity starts at home first, and then it go abroad.
Politically, having over 500 people in our community would completely wipe out any interest we have.
Many of these migrants have been dumped in our neighborhoods without a plan in place to monitor and house them long term.
I'm not selling nothing, and I keep telling people, you don't have to move. If you sell, they gonna come in.
Why in the world are black residents sick and tired of the migrant crisis? Well, it's because allocated funds that typically tend to go to these people over here are now going to these people over here. I hate to say it this way, but I got to go ahead and throw it out there. It seems to me like you've got two parties fighting over a handout, when in reality, the handout is really just a hand up to the people who, quite frankly, need the assistance. I know it sounds a little bit insensitive, but bear with me for a second. Most of the people who live in Chicago that are minorities, they are working very, very low-end jobs. The poor section of the city, there's YouTube channels that are like Hood Time, the Hood Channel, or Crime Time, all those places there, where you can actually go through and look at exactly what these neighborhoods look like. They're pretty daggone bad. I mean, these people are living in some pretty bad conditions. Granted, they voted for it, but also at the same time, they were also sold the line. People who are, quite frankly, easiest to manipulate are those who are the most emotional. I don't think I need to go any further on that. But the point is this right here. A lot of these minorities are getting very, very few hours at work, getting very, very few amounts of money. So therefore, the city is going to provide a few extra benefits for them. And of course, access to certain benefits that, quite frankly, you get from the federal government are going to be a little bit more readily available. We really and truly need to revisit the Great Society Act and the Civil Rights Act both, or at least the Great Society Act, because the Great Society Act basically incentivized single mothers, fatherless homes, all that type of stuff there, by basically giving people welfare, when in reality you should not be looking for a handout, but a handout should be just temporarily given to you. Now, the people who are coming across the border, however, they're not being given the hand up. They're being given a direct handout. And then from that handout, they're being given a job somewhere in the middle of Iowa, which, by the way, we talked about the other day, where a Tyson pork plant got shut down, or at least the workers, American workers, and even Hispanic workers who've been in this country for a very long time, still waiting on their legalization status. They've been working in those areas for a while, and they now see these people completely hop the line and get the benefits ahead of them. You're creating rampant amounts of jealousy is what you're doing. So at some point in time, this particular powder keg is in fact going to blow up, and it's not going to be pretty. Once again, everything in this world, everything in the United States of America happens to be political, and there's also another group within the group that obviously cannot see what the hell is going on. Case in point, for example, the city of Chicago now has this Get Out the Vote campaign to vote on certain measures. One of these measures involves the homeless, and I'll be linking this video right here from Black Conservative Perspective in the description box, because Greg has a nice little nugget at the very end to show you guys exactly what it is that they're voting for per se. But I want you guys to take a good look at the ages of these people in this video. Of course, they're mostly young people, college age, coming straight out of high school, and you got to ask yourself a question: where does the indoctrination, when is it going to end? And obviously, is this right here really and truly the future of America? Or these indoctrinated teenagers who are going to the voting booth, who are being told, vote Democrat over and over and over again for the rest of their life, not realizing that they're actually voting for their own end.
Students joined in chants of "Housing is a human right" as they marched to the polls today, led by members of La Casa Norte and Chicago Votes. This was billed as an effort to help high school students vote for the very first time.
I feel very excited. I think it matters, and it's important to vote.
But the nonpartisan integrity of this event under question, with it starting with a congressional candidate forum hosted at the headquarters of the Chicago Teachers Union, a staunch advocate of Bring Chicago Home. That's the ballot referendum that would change the real estate transfer tax rates to raise millions to help the unhoused.
There are hundreds of students that don't have a house. We need to bring important costs to this, because a lot of people just go out. There's people on the streets every day. We just pass by them. It is very important that everybody has their own house.
Also of note, on chairs throughout the auditorium, there were voter guides with a link to chicagovotes.com. In there was a comic strip showing the mayor pitching the referendum, and another showing a polling place saying your valued vote is needed to bring Chicago home. It was an issue teachers had talked to students about in the classroom before this event.
They never really forced like a decision onto us, but they definitely gave us information about it. I definitely believe that it's important. It's a significant factor, and I definitely feel like...
Well, two things. Number one, obviously they're not valued, seeing how it is that they're being replaced. And number two, you got to wonder how it is that this person here was so easily manipulated into voting a certain way. And I'm pretty sure you guys have already figured out exactly what way she's going to vote. These young, impressionable minds are being led into their own end, is basically what I'm saying. They're bringing in these people because they, quite frankly, need a brand new voter base, because one voter base is shrinking. I've talked about this on several occasions, and of course, it'll also be involved in a much, much larger project later on when I talk about immigration and the real reason why it is the way it is. Or I may split it up into a different category, meaning BRT. It just depends on how the YouTube algorithm works, because if you talk about GRT or WRT, next thing you know, YouTube will put one of those labels on your video, making sure it does not get out to the public for people to see. The point is this right here. The Democratic Party, the current establishment, they are looking for a brand new voter base, and they have found that voter base, and that category, of course, is obviously Hispanics. That's the whole point, is one-party rule, which I'll touch on a little bit more tomorrow, but why it is I don't really truly panic on. Now, I'll go ahead and give you a bit of a preview on this now. It's very possible that the Republican side of the establishment anticipated this, and it's part of the reason why it is they've been on the whole anti-socialism shtick ever since 2012 or since before then. Obviously, these people are coming from socialist countries, so therefore these people coming into these brand new areas obviously want to think to themselves, okay, we didn't want to leave socialism only to come into another socialist country. But as I've said in previous videos, the vast majority of these Hispanics that are coming over here to scrub toilets and do the very, very bad jobs that people like Kelly Osbourne said they're going to be doing. That right there is the real truth of the situation. They're not going to be getting good high-end jobs or anything like that. And of course, it's also going to displace a lot of Americans from being able to have a job too. So in a lot of ways, it's actually the great displacement theory if you actually think about it. But we'll talk more about that in other videos. Fact of the matter is that you have a measles crisis. You have not only a measles crisis, but you have crime out of control. You have people not wanting to get poked, which of course I don't blame them for not wanting to do. And of course you've got the taxpayer that quite frankly can't pay for this anymore. And of course you've got residents who are angry about the situation, especially those who live in the area who have in fact had enough. There is going to be a bit of a backlash this year. It just depends on what kind of backlash it is. I personally think the biggest reason why the Republican poll numbers are so much higher for black voters is because of a much, much lower black turnout. But we'll see what actually happens. Fact of the matter is that this situation could get a lot worse. And of course, the people who are going to be holding the bag at the end of the day are the ones that the Biden administration chose to bring over, who for the most part are the ones who just may end up being the ones that are be holding the bag. I told you before, the best thing you could do is just simply build a wall and close down the border and you wouldn't have this crisis. But once again, here we are dealing with liberal stupidity. With that right there being said, guys, please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Let's make the platform bigger, and I'll see you guys later.